In this week's Drive, we see what's hot in the world of racing brakes, trade some paint and pick up some gravel, watch the champ get really grumpy, and see why motorists love a visit from this fairy. All this and more in this week's Drive. We start in the bustling Chinese city of Shanghai, scene of the region's first Formula One Grand Prix. The state-of-the-art $300 million circuit has been described as the most technically demanding track in the world. After the race, Scottish racing driver David Coulthard gave an insight into some aspects of the track. Designed by German engineer Hermann Tilke, who also penned the circuits in Bahrain and Sepang, the Shanghai track looks set to be a test of driver and car for years to come.
I had the opportunity to see the layout of the track, obviously on detailed maps before coming to the event, and also with the simulation facilities that we have at McLaren. But to actually see it in real life is pretty impressive. If you look at this grandstand and press office complex behind us, it's like nothing that we've ever raced at before in Formula One. The track is very technical. We'll look through a number of the corners here today, but we're standing just down at the entry to Turn 1, which is a very long, tightening switchback corner, so I think there's going to be a lot of action, a lot of incidents on this track. The physical aspects of this track I think are going to be very high. There's maybe 3 or 4 fast corners which are very long and undoubtedly are going to take a lot out of the driver. It's going to ask a lot of the car setup as well, because a long corner works the tyre very hard, and where you build up those long sort of constant temperatures, then that can lead to graining and associated problems. So I think the tyre battle here is going to be quite interesting.
Winner of 13 Grand Prix, Coulthard started the race from 9th on the grid, tangled with Ralf Schumacher on lap 37, stopped for a new wheel and finished a disappointing 9th.
We're at the end of what is Turn 1, effectively into Turn 2. And as you can see, we've come from all the way over there, right round to this point, when it drops downhill into this tight left-hander. So you can imagine at the start of the Grand Prix, there's going to be cars going everywhere trying to get track position. So not only is it a very difficult corner to do alone, but to try and do it with 20 other cars, I think is going to be a little bit of carnage.
The Chinese race is held late in the year, which is good, according to Coulthard.
The thing that will play in our favour is that it's a little bit cooler now than they're used to here, so the cool temperatures makes it easier for the driver. There's going to be a lot of load as you come down the hill. There'll be a little bit of compression here at the bottom. You're going to be using the front tyre a lot. As you can see, the corner tightens. So I think that's a real sort of key design feature of this track, is the length of a lot of the corners that they have. So I think this is going to be a track that responds to having a good front end, and it'll be a battle to see who's got the best. There'll be a lot of gear changes in this lap. I think it's 5.2 kilometres. There's going to be quite a compromise with the downforce, which you need through this section, and needing the top speed on the main straight. We can see one thing here the drivers have had an input in. We've requested that at all tracks, on the other side of the curb, they have this AstroTurf. And the advantage of this is, if you remember many of the circuits, normally when you run wide, there's dust and all sorts of stones and everything brought onto the track. The advantage of this is you lose grip when you're on it, so there's no reason for you to want to use it. And if you do, you don't ruin it up for someone else who's following. This is actually quite an aggressive curve, but it's not one that we, the drivers, are particularly keen on, because you can see that if you find yourself in a position where your front wheel is there, then there's some suspension damage could be caused on that. But, the FIA would argue keep off the curb and you won't damage your car, but it's tricky sometimes.
Facilities for teams, sponsors and journalists have really come a long way in the last 10 or 20 years.
The time that it takes you to get to the pit limit is absolutely crucial, because if you're running 1 second behind another car on the track and you lose half a second in the pit lane, then quite obviously you're not going to pass them. You can see the beginning of the pit limit there, where it says pit in, is set to 60 kilometres an hour for during the Friday and Saturday morning practice sessions. You can see there's very impressive grandstand, media centre, some corporate hospitality at the top. It really does set new standards for other circuits to try and implement.
With the pressure of the championship over, some might say that Schumacher's 12th place was no accident. He started last from pit lane, suffered a mid-race puncture and a spin. Button's consistent efforts, 9 podium finishes this year, puts BAR well ahead of Renault. Too bad he's defecting to Williams next year. The next race is in Brazil. Here's a test like no other. Put 2 of the best drivers in the world in 2 of the best cars in the world and see how well they stop. Juan Pablo Montoya puts things in context.
When you brake, all the moisture and everything, it goes forward into the visor. It's pretty cool.
One of the big elements of going fast is being able to slow down rapidly to get around corners safely. So braking systems on Formula One cars are massively powerful. From 200 to 0 in just a few seconds, the deceleration is enormous. Both cars brake at the same time. The Formula One car stops almost immediately, but the road car, equipped with the latest generation anti-lock brakes but 3 times as heavy, doesn't stop for at least another 30 meters.
The pedal in a passenger car is always very soft. In Formula One, the pedal's very firm and doesn't travel far. In a passenger car, when you're braking hard, you feel that you're not going to stop properly, whereas in Formula One, you come to a standstill straight away.
Both cars use big discs behind each wheel, squeezed by a clamp connected to the foot pedal, to slow down. But there the similarities end. They're made of very different materials.
Formula One uses disc brakes just like passenger cars. The difference is that Formula One uses carbon. However, this carbon only works at very high temperatures. The disc must be 300 degrees centigrade, and that would be unthinkable in passenger cars. Therefore, grey cast iron is still mainly used as the material for brake discs in current passenger cars. In the future, ceramic brake discs, which are just starting to appear on sports cars, will also be used.
The brakes are one of a car's most remarkable components. They operate under extremely stressful conditions, are subject to the worst operating environment, and receive only routine maintenance, yet perform a vital task repeatedly at an instant's notice. For road cars, there are systems like ABS, an emergency brake force assist, to help a driver get the most from his machine. Racing drivers aren't so lucky. The rules ban many of these electronic driver aids.
We therefore have to be very sensitive. Of course, you brake as hard as you can at the end of a straight, but as soon as you get to the apex of the bend, you often see 1 or 2 wheels starting to lock. Then you've really got to be the ABS yourself.
Carbon is light, strong and consistent in its performance, although the discs are replaced after every race. On the track, carbon brakes work best at between 500 and 800 degrees and can often be seen glowing red hot, even in bright sunlight. Formula One cars have carefully designed ventilation systems to keep them within this range. Air is drawn in from the front wing through the wheel hubs, which must be kept cool, and blown out through ventilation slots in the disc. Different tracks get bigger or smaller intakes for more or less cooling. Other teams use various systems of mechanical induction to force cool air through the discs. If the discs aren't properly cooled, they wear out prematurely, and in extreme conditions they can explode. That applies particularly to high-speed tracks where heavy braking is common, such as Monza, Budapest and Montreal. Reliable, powerful brakes are as important as an engine in any vehicle, on the road or on the track. Passenger cars have benefited from developments first seen on the track. The disc brake, for example, was a racing innovation. Strange, then, that the pinnacle of the sport is now denied the latest electronic developments which are being made on the road. It was a clear, late summer afternoon as NASCAR came to Loudon, New Hampshire, and the Sylvania 300 got off to a clean start. Tyres are always below operating temperature at the start of a race, and with the track also cool due to the weather, good grip was at a premium.
Tony Stewart is up in never.
Robbie Gordon spent a lot of the race sideways. On lap 17, he was tapped by Greg Biffle, which sent him towards the outside wall. NASCAR drivers seemingly have very long memories and never forget who caused their crashes, and Gordon would tap Biffle on lap 64, which caused his number 16 car to spin along with Jeremy Mayfield. Tony Stewart in the number 20 car then ploughed into Biffle. Later, on lap 113, Gordon's car was loose on the track, and as he began to slide, he was hit by Morgan Shepherd. This time, Gordon was sent spinning towards the inside of the track.
So Robbie has been on and heading back.
Slow down the front straight.
Ryan Newman is one of the 10 drivers eligible to compete for the championship in the remaining races this season, but he lost valuable points when his engine blew up, 35 laps shy of the finish.
His crew chief Jimmy Fenton.
Kurt Busch was able to avoid the other drivers' dramas and grab the win. It was the third victory of the season for Busch, who moved up from 7th to 2nd in the season standings with this victory, the 11th of his NASCAR career. Busch has won both races this season at the New Hampshire track and is tied with Dale Earnhardt Jr. after the first race of the new 10-man, 10-race championship showdown.
For the 97 bunch. Benny says next year you have to start last when we come back to New Hampshire.
The 17th and 18th rounds of the European Touring Car Championship at the Oschersleben delivered to BMW the manufacturer's championship for the second year in a row. The outgoing champion, Gabriele Tarquini and Alfa Romeo, left Germany disappointed. Their chances of another title vanished after only 3 laps of the first race, when Tarquini retired with transmission failure that also prevented him from starting the second race. Throughout the field, the racing was intense, as Dirk Muller found out when he ran off the track after a gentle nudge from Fabrizio Giovanardi. Right behind Giovanardi, Dirk's brother Jorg had a grandstand view of the incident. Englishman Andy Priaulx in a BMW won race 1, finishing ahead of Brazil's Augusto Farfus in an Alfa Romeo and Dirk Muller. Race 2 started with a traditional reversal of the first 10 finishes from race 1. From the pole, Tom Coronel took the lead, chased by Sweden's Rickard Rydell, Jorg Muller and James Thompson. Rydell stole the lead from Coronel, who also lost out to Muller and Thompson. On lap 3, Augusto Farfus attacked Priaulx's 6th position. They collided, and the British Race 1 winner was forced to retire. Thompson moved to 2nd, and Farfus passed Coronel for 5th. On lap 5, the Muller brothers were on the tail of Thompson's Alfa. The Englishman and Jorg Muller collided twice, with both the Alfa and the BMW doing some soil sampling, as neither driver would give way. The German got the worst of it and retired. Meanwhile, his brother Dirk moved up to 2nd behind Rydell's Seat. Giovanardi was at it again, this time clashing with Coronel. Up front, Rydell increased his pace, stretching his lead to score Seat's first win in the championship. Dirk Muller and Farfus completed the podium, ahead of a brilliant Coronel. The Champ Car's Californian round belonged to Canadian driver Patrick Carpentier, who led most of the practice sessions and then dominated the race. Series leader Sébastien Bourdais started from pole position but had a miserable day, having to make a pit stop with a ripped tyre after a problem on the second turn of the race. Defending series champion Tracy took over the lead, putting Carpentier 2nd. Later in the race, the caution flags came out when Rodolfo Lavigne and lanky British ex-Jaguar Formula One driver Justin Wilson crashed on the notorious downhill turn, appropriately known as the corkscrew. Then more problems for Bourdais, as his front end was clipped, which required a lengthy pit stop to fix. Once Carpentier took the lead, he was hard to catch. He built a lead of 22 seconds over Bruno Junqueira, stretching it a little bit on every lap. The race got tighter when Roberto Gonzalez stopped on the track on lap 54, bringing out the third and final full-course caution flag. That gave Junqueira another shot at the leader, but Carpentier easily pulled away after the green flag on lap 58. He built a lead of almost 10 seconds, despite this almost disastrous off-course excursion, but slowed in the last few laps. Carpentier beat Junqueira to the line by 5.4 seconds, nearly the length of the final straight. Junqueira finished second to Carpentier for the second straight year and cut Bourdais' series lead from 35 to 24 points, with 3 races remaining. Oriol Servia finished a distant third, giving his team its first podium finish since Roberto Moreno finished third in 1996. The race was shortened by a lap from its scheduled 80 by Champ Car's 1 hour 45-minute time limit for road races. With its sleek lines and sculpted bodywork, an onlooker might be forgiven for thinking that this is the latest custom sports car to hit the market. A look under the bonnet tells a different story, though. Instead of a huge, petrol-guzzling engine, you get this, a small 3-cylinder diesel engine, the same as you'd find in a smart car. The fuel-efficient jet car was dreamed up by 2 German brothers, Christian Wenger-Rosenau, pictured here, and his brother Michael. With high petrol prices and growing concerns about climate change, the subject of environmentally friendly transport has never been more pertinent. The car was hand-built at this workshop in a small town north of Berlin, the smallest car production company in Germany. The jet car has a glass resin fibre body and a steel frame, making it lightweight yet tough. The car's design is part of what makes it so fuel-efficient.
It is very, very aerodynamic and very lightweight. The weight is about 700 kilo. And because of the aerodynamic, it goes very fast and it consumes so less fuel.
The company claims Jetcar uses 2.6 litres of fuel for every 100 kilometres travelled, the first production car in Germany to go under the 3-litre mark. It's a formidable claim, one they backed up with a demonstration at a local airstrip over 100 kilometres. At the end, the proof was in the fuel tank. The company plans to build about 100 vehicles over the next year with a price tag of €35,000.
I hope we can produce a high volume of cars, but we don't have a partner yet. I also hope that people's attitudes, the politics, and especially traffic policies will change, because I think we owe it to our grandchildren that we start saving resources for the future.
On the airstrip, the car reached a top speed of 146 kilometres an hour. South Africa's Sun City was the venue for the final round of the motocross world title, but the event was not without controversy. The world's top 2 MX1 class riders, Belgium's 8-times world champion Stefan Everts and France's Michael Pichon, went head-to-head in the heat and dust and 2,000-metre altitude of the African veldt. Pichon narrowly won the first race just ahead of Everts, so it was all down to the deciding race. In the second race, the pair tangled in a corner in unseen circumstances and Everts crashed right off the course. It was plain he felt that he'd been fouled as he stormed onto the track and threw abuse and his goggles at Pichon. Despite the champion's tantrum, the race continued and New Zealand's Joshua Coppins took the checkered flag. Pichon was second and Belgium's Steve Ramon was third. In the collision with Pichon, Stefan fell on his right shoulder and retired, his first DNF since the 2001 Dutch GP in Lierop. South Africa's triple world champion veteran Greg Albertine came out of a 4-year retirement to claim the lead for the first 2 laps in the second heat, but gradually dropped back to a creditable 6th place among much younger riders 10 years after his last world title. But the already crowned champion still tops the title with 668 points. Pichon ends the year second with 620 and Coppins is third on 564. The races were tougher in the MX2 class as New Zealander Ben Townley, suffering from nausea, couldn't build a safe gap. He was under pressure from local hero Tyler Rattray and Englishman Stephen Sword in the first heat, but the Briton had gearbox trouble and retired. Rattray was riding a 2-stroke bike which suffered a power loss at the high-altitude track. Winning the first race by a second, Ben had to contain Antonio Cairoli, who claimed third behind Townley and Rattray, followed by Igor Lierok, who got his second consecutive heat podium. The young Estonian came back strongly from 18th to 3rd, but wasn't able to repeat this feat in the second race. Riding with an injured thumb and shoulder, Michael Maschio retired in the first heat and crashed twice in the second. For the last Grand Prix of his 18-season-long career, Andrea Bartolini finished 12th overall. Townley rounded off the year with a double win. In total, he claimed 21 victories through the year. He took the title with 622 points, way ahead of Rattray, with Cairoli third. And finally, it seems salvation comes in all shapes and sizes. He wears a pink wig, mask, tutu and a pair of wings, and has become somewhat of a superhero around town. He's Miami's first parking meter fairy, saving many Miami residents from the ultimate annoyance, a parking ticket. Employed by local restaurateurs and retailers who were losing business because visitors were getting too many parking fines, Xavier Cortez puts on his costume and skates around Coconut Grove, one of Miami's trendiest areas, putting change into meters about to expire.
I'm the parking meter fairy, and my job consists of saving people from getting parking fines by plugging the meter with quarters whenever I see that the time is about to expire. I got the job in response to an ad in the paper. They were looking for an extroverted person that could speak more than 2 languages, that could skate, and that didn't mind wearing a tutu.
Cortez, a 36-year-old artist specializing in what he calls pop iconography with surreal imagery, had gone some time without a regular gig. Behind the meter fairy idea is Cynthia Bettner, publisher of a local magazine. She said Cortez, originally from Venezuela, was perfect for the job because he's an artist with a theatre background and isn't embarrassed by the costume.
We had a lot of shop owners that were complaining that their shoppers were getting ticketed and they were leaving very upset. So we decided that we'd come up with this idea to bring a character that would be like a superhero to come save people from getting a parking fine.
Local business owners say customers are much happier, and happy customers are more likely to return. But rich and poor alike are at risk in the Grove. The Miami Parking Authority dispenses 4,600 tickets per month there, totaling $95,000. And thanks to its efforts, the city and Miami-Dade County kept $3.8 million of Miami parkers' money last year.
I was running late with the money in the parking meter, and I came out here to my surprise. There was time left, and it probably saved me from getting a ticket.
Javier Cortez is certainly not the first man to put on a pink tutu and call himself a fairy. But few in history have worn a tutu, a wig, wings and skates, and glittery pink knee pads. It's a good job he's not the shy, retiring type.
Little kids just stare at me in awe. Some guys whistle at me, you know. Some ladies say that pink is my color, that I look fabulous. It's all tongue-in-cheek.
Every time Cortez goes out to work, he's sponsored by a different merchant. Business owners pay him $10 per hour to go rollerblading through the Grove armed with parking authority debit cards and a bag full of quarters, saving visitors from expired parking meters between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. The idea has even been well received by the city of Miami.
You know, any opportunity there is to sort of make any particular visitor's experience at Coconut Grove that much better, you know, I applaud them. It's great for them.
Although he mostly skates around the area putting change in parking meters, he also educates the public on how to use the new ticketing machines which are replacing the meters in the area. Locals are happy he's on the job, and many express their gratitude in various ways.
Whenever I save somebody, whenever they know that their time has expired, they're expecting to find a ticket and instead they find my little card and time in their meter. You know, they look for me, they find me, they thank me, they have tipped me. You know, I've gotten kisses, pictures taken. You know, it's great.
And the pink star-shaped wand he carries plays over the rainbow. So whether you like getting in a spin, being shoved from behind, or just droning around, so you stay on track and up to speed, make sure you catch next week's Drive.